Hello, and thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. Glad you made it today. Today I wanted to talk to you about, do you need a Nexus letter, and do you need an in-service event in order to have a successful claim? Those two things are very important in some cases, and in other cases they're not. So let me dive into this and let you know kind of my thoughts on Nexus letters and in-service events. Because what I've found is that many people are filing claims. Maybe they're missing pieces, maybe they're getting denied. They're not really sure what they're putting together as far as evidence is concerned. And sometimes people might think they need something that they might not really need. So if this is something you're looking forward to hearing about, to get a little more clarity on, please hit that thumbs up for me. It really, really helps. It doesn't cost you a nickel. Same thing with subscribing. It's free to subscribe, free to like. And what that does is it helps to share this information with more of us, because YouTube recognizes that there's a whirlwind of interest in this type of subject. And quite frankly, like other people's videos too that you watch, and subscribe to them too. It really doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm a fan of everybody, right? It's all about getting this information out to all of us that have no clue. And I'm going to tell you, if you've watched any of my videos before, I've mentioned it in some of them. Look, there's over 16 million veterans, 16.5 million veterans in the U.S., and sadly, less than 30% of those are receiving any sort of VA compensation benefit. So that is a big number that is not receiving anything, and I believe personally that a big chunk of those people would actually qualify for something. So with that, let's get into it. First, I'm going to talk about a Nexus letter and what the purpose of that is, and when you really need one and when you don't. And the reason why I'm also talking about an in-service event is because it kind of all goes together. So a Nexus letter helps the VA see proof by evidence in some way, shape, or fashion that a condition manifested, started, or was a result of your time in service. Now, when you need a Nexus letter, really it's usually the situations, actually, in almost all of the time, is you served your time in the military, 4 years, 6 years, 12, 33 years, whatever your number is, you served. Then you got out and a period of time has went by, and now all of a sudden you're enlightened and you understand what kind of benefits are out there, so you want to file. However, you never got diagnosed for the condition while you were in service. You rubbed dirt on it, you drank water, you changed your socks, you ate 15 Motrin, and you moved on, which is what we all do. So now, whoever you're working with, hopefully is saying, hey, look, you have a diagnosed condition of X. You have your time in service, however many years that is, but they're separate. We need to show that your condition is either as a result of your time in service or that it started during your time in service. So how you can do that is you can talk with your doctor, and your doctor can provide you what we call a Nexus letter. That Nexus letter is simply the doctor explaining that your condition is at least likely as not, which is a 50-50, right? So that takes the pressure off the doctor in some cases. I personally request and ask for more than likely letters, that your condition is more than likely is as a result of your time in service doing blah, 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 right? So you can build around it. But it's basically a doctor saying your condition is more than likely, or at a minimum, at least likely as not, to have occurred or manifested or is as a result of your time in service. That's a Nexus letter, and really what it's doing is it's giving you that piece of the puzzle to allow the VA to then go ahead and service connect you for that condition. When do you not need a Nexus letter? Let's say that you're in service, you hurt your knee, and you go to the medical whoever, whether it's the battalion aid station or your medic, your corpsman, whatever, and you route through some stuff and you do some paperwork and all of that stuff, and now you're diagnosed with some sort of a knee injury, with some sort of chronic condition to it. You would then have all of that stuff written down, and it's all documented during your time in service. Now, can you still get a Nexus letter? Sure. It's just the doctor saying that it's at least likely as not to have occurred during your time in service, trying to show that it manifested in that time frame of active duty, while all of your medical records show that it manifested during the time in service. What the VA most likely is looking for at this point, because you've already established that you have a condition during your time in service, what they most likely would be looking for is it chronic in nature? Has it continued? Is there a continuing problem with that condition? Because the VA will not rate you for something that's gotten completely 100% better. So, for example, the example I like to use is, let's say you break your arm. Traumatic, sucked. The military puts you in a cast. After 8 weeks, they take off the cast, and guess what? You're good to go, 100%, no issues. You're maxing out your PT tests and all that stuff for the next however many years, and everything's great. You're not going to file a claim for, hey, I broke my arm in the military and I want to get compensated for that. They already paid to fix you, the government, and you're fixed 100%. There's no chronic issue with your arm. There's no residual effects to that break. So you're not going to get service connected for that. So the VA, in the situation of you having a condition documented during your time in service, they may want to see ongoing doctor's appointments, ongoing visits, medication, those types of things to help establish the chronic nature piece of your condition. I hope that makes sense. So now let's flip it over here and let's talk about an in-service event. So an in-service event, you don't necessarily need an in-service event to be able to file a successful claim with the VA. So an in-service event would be, you had some sort of an injury. Typically, in-service events would lean toward injury, or where maybe you were exposed to some sort of a toxin. Agent Orange would be a good example. Agent Orange would be a good example, except for the fact that they are now presumptive conditions for Agent Orange. So that takes away the need for a Nexus, and the VA is already conceded to those specific ailments for Agent Orange. But nonetheless, let's say that your job was fuel systems, or refueling, or something like that in the Air Force, and you were just breathing jet fuel just day after day, right? And so I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a list of horrible things that you could be posed to coming down with due to all of that jet fuel exposure. Now, if you come down with one of those, your in-service event could be, hey, I had day after day of being around all of this jet fuel. That's my in-service event, right? So it could be something like that. Or more traumatic, it could be you were in a convoy and your vehicle got hit by an IED, right? And jacked up your right side of your body. Okay, so now you are you're with that in-service event of the IED going off, and you have all the documentation on that, and that would be your in-service event for all of your conditions that you're dealing with. Do you need to have an in-service event? Back to that question. No, and the examples I like to give here are migraine headaches or GERD. Oftentimes these things are going to result in an individual, and there is no specific in-service event that created those specific conditions. It's not necessary. So what happens is we get wrapped around the axle a little bit on, hey, I can't file a claim because I don't have an in-service event for this condition. Really, what you need to look at is, did my condition start during service in any which way? Whether it was an in-service event, I got hit by an IED, whether it was I was breathing jet fuel, whether I was exposed to loud noises, or whether it just showed up, right? Out of nowhere. One day I started getting migraines. One day I just started getting bad heartburn. So GERD, right? And if it started by any means during your active duty time in service, now you have a leg to stand on. The problem now becomes you got out, and now you have to try to build the bridge back, right, into that time frame if you did not document anything during your time frame. So that's where the Nexus letter would then come into effect if you did not document anything during your time in service to prove the Nexus. So sometimes people get confused with proving the Nexus and a Nexus letter. So a Nexus simply means show me or prove to me somehow that that condition started, manifested, is as a result of whatever during your time in service. So if you lack that evidence to prove it, that's where the Nexus letter comes into play from the doctor. So all of that, I hope, it was a bit of a ramble, but I just wanted to talk about those two things specifically, Nexus letters and in-service events. And are they absolutely necessary? No, they're not. It's all, every claim is an individual thing, and it really depends on a whole host of things and all the nuance around it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.